Conversion therapy is something I want to talk about. It's a really interesting one because the government has been saying that it's going to ban conversion therapy. This is courses and different therapeutic ways in which people can apparently, allegedly, according to this conversion therapy stuff, can stop people being gay, stop people being bisexual, lesbian, whatever. And actually, Rishi Sunak is expected to delay a promised ban on conversion therapy following disagreements over how the legislation should be worded. Ministers said that a draft bill banning people from trying to change a child's gender identity or sexuality would be published at the end of the parliamentary session in November. This is all part of it as well. But Penny Mordaunt, who's the leader of the House, declined to guarantee it'll be brought out by that time. Someone says, familiar with government thinking, says it's dead in the water. A ban on conversion therapy would actually have two aspects. Firstly, to stop therapists and religious leaders attempting to turn gay people straight, and secondly, to stop people attempting to persuade a child against changing their gender. Well, let's talk to Matthew Hulbert. He's a Liberal Democrat activist. Graham Nicholls is Director of Affinity, Gospel Churches in Partnership. You're both very welcome to the programme this morning. How are you doing?
Good. Very well. Thanks for having us on. It's beautiful, sunny here.
It's a lovely day here in London as well. Graham, maybe I could start with you, because a lot of people will say conversion therapy. I mean, why can't we just accept that people are gay or lesbian or have a different are not straight, basically? Why is conversion therapy something that even should exist at all? What do you think, Graham?
I think the thing that's trying to be banned doesn't particularly exist on any kind of scale. So I don't think there are large-scale groups of people who are coercively trying to persuade someone to stop being what they think they are. What I think it'll end up banning is normal Christian pastors and parents and church leaders just having conversations, consensual conversations with their children or with their people in their congregation about what they think the Bible teaches. And I don't think that should be banned. And if as a consequence of that, someone who might be same-sex attracted or might have some confusion about what gender they should present, if they change their opinion, I don't think that's a problem. People are changing their opinions all the time based on relaxed, consensual conversations and listening to different people's opinions.
But is it relaxed, and is it relaxed though when you have perhaps grow up in a religious household and you're told that the Bible says, from your perspective anyway, I would imagine Matthew has a different perspective, he's also a Christian, it should be said, that from your perspective, am I right in saying, and I just want to be totally clear on this, am I right in saying that your view, based on biblical teachings, in your view, is that any sex outside marriage or anything not between a man and a woman is against God's law?
That would be my view, because I think it's been the traditional teaching of the church forever. So that is my view, but I wouldn't force that on anybody. But I think what's at the heart of this is the potential to just ban any kind of religious expression at all. And that's what I'm more worried about, because in Victoria, in Australia, basically there's now rules coming out about what pastors are allowed to pray or what they're allowed to say in sermons, like with specific examples. I mean, this is pretty sinister.
Well, that's in Australia, but this bill is apparently about conversion therapy. Matthew Hulbert, I hope you don't mind me saying, and it's on your Twitter anyway, so I'm sure you're happy enough for people to know that you are gay and that you are a Christian as well. What do you make of what Graham and people who believe what he believes thinks about this, and specifically in regard to conversion therapy, Matthew?
Well, good morning, Peter, and good morning to Graham, and indeed to your viewers and listeners. I want to start out by saying that I think this is a shameful betrayal by this government of LGBT plus people. Now, you would say that, Matthew, you're a Lib Dem, but actually I was prepared to give credit to this government for saying that it was going to ban conversion therapy. It first said it 5 years ago, and here we are now being told that it's still not going to happen, that it's being kicked in the long grass, that it may never happen. Now, let's just be serious about what we're talking about here. Reported methods that have been used for conversion therapy include brain surgery, surgical or hormonal castration, electric shocks, nausea-inducing drugs, hypnosis, spiritual interventions, whatever they are, and arousal reconditioning. This is not, some little prayer being said. This is really serious and has really damaging and long-term negative effects on LGBT plus people.
Serious and damaging, Graham Nicholls. That's what Matthew says. What's wrong with banning those kind of practices?
I'm very happy to ban those kind of practices, but those kind of practices are already banned. That's not the intent of a conversion therapy ban. The target of a conversion therapy ban is much more on people like myself expressing what I believe the Bible teaches, and that really is where it's going. I have no doubt about that.
So, Graham, can I just ask you, actually, before I come back to Matthew, if there was, say, a 12, 13-year-old boy or girl who came to you and said, you know what, I think I'm attracted to other boys or other girls of the same gender, what would you say to them? What would your advice be to them?
Well, just to give it some context, generally speaking, I wouldn't be speaking on my own to a child that wasn't one of my own children.
Sure, of course, but imagine in a spiritual context, someone came to you and said,
I would continue to teach what I think the Bible teaches about gender and sexuality, and about the joy and celebration of that, and that I don't think it's right for them to pursue that. I wouldn't get into, I want to change your orientation, or I want to manipulate you or coerce you or do anything else, but I can't help but explain what I think the Bible teaches. But I mean, that would be done in an age-appropriate way, and you know, it depend on all sorts of things to do with what they're asking and the presence of their parents and all those kind of things. I have conversations with people, say in, you know, my own context, where they are Christians and they've taken a different view about what to practice being a Christian, and if they want to not practice being gay, I want to encourage them in that, because I think that's correct. I'm not coercing them or persuading them against their will, but I don't want that conversation to be banned. And particularly with children, there's so much debate about whether it's even at all helpful. This is by people who aren't Christians at all, about whether it's at all helpful to encourage a child, as opposed to, you know, an 18-year-old, to transition. No one's really even agreed that it's a good thing. So why should I be banned from saying, from both a religious point of view, from a health point of view, from a psychological point of view, I don't think you should think about transitioning.
So it seems to me, Graham, that your argument is mainly one of freedom of speech, religious freedom. What do you think about that, Matthew?
Well, I mean, Graham can believe and say what he likes. I think he's wholly wrong. And the God that I believe in is a God of love. And what I'd say to Graham is that if he thinks I'm somehow broken, if he thinks that I'm somehow not correctly made, then his argument, his quarrel is not with me. His quarrel is with my maker.
Well, let's ask Graham if he thinks those things, because you said some quite strong things there. Graham, do you think those things?
I think we're all broken. I don't have a view on Matthew. Matthew, as he very politely said about myself, he can believe as he wishes. I can only express what I think the Bible is teaching.
But you do think Matthew's wrong?
Of course I think he's wrong, because that's what I'm teaching. By definition, I must think that his view and practice is wrong. But then I disagree with lots of people, some of them Christians, about what their practice is. And I would love to be able to have the freedom to sit down and talk to people like Matthew, and not to feel like, okay, I can't say anything to Matthew to contradict his view because I'm going to end up in prison. And that's basically where it would end up. Matthew comes to me and says...
Do you think, honestly, that's where it's going to end up? I mean, do you really think that a ban on conversion therapy and some of those horrible things that Matthew has talked about, which I think are just barbaric and horrendous, is really going to end up with, if you say to a young man, let's say there's a 22-year-old man who comes to you and says, I'm attracted to other men, and you say, that's not what the Bible teaches, I'm not happy with that, I don't think you should be doing that, but listen, you're free to do what you want. Do you honestly think you're going to be imprisoned for saying that?
The proponents of the bill would like that to be in prison. I totally agree with you that those abhorrent practices should be banned, but they basically are banned under legislation that's already there, you know, about physical and mental and emotional abuse. So I don't think this would capture anything new, this law, except for those normal consensual conversations that I'm talking about. And I'd like the freedom to chat with Matthew, and for him not to feel that he's going to be locked up for his practice, and for me to not feel that I've got to be locked up for mine.
Matthew?
Well, what I'd say is that this is why church pews are so empty. across the country, this kind of attitude. And I'm really proud to go to an inclusive church that is fully inclusive and not just accepting or tolerant of LGBT plus people, but celebrating our presence in church, because actually, as the Bible tells me, I am wonderfully made, and I'm wonderfully made by a God of love, and that is the one that I worship. But I just want to emphasize, Peter, just how serious this is. A 2018 study published in the American Journal of Public Health, but obviously it's the same here as well, found that LGBT plus young people who'd been exposed to so-called conversion therapy were more than twice as likely to report attempting taking their own lives following the experience. These practices are abhorrent, and the government should ban them, as it said it would. And as I say, I personally see it as a great betrayal of LGBT plus people by this government.
We can all trade statistics. In Sweden, you're
yes, we can, Graham.
40 times more likely to commit suicide if you've transitioned from a female to a male. So I don't want to sort of compete with those, because we end up with some kind of top trumps statistics. There's not that much studies around that really take us anywhere. All I can say is I have never encountered any of the abhorrent practices that you've spoken of, and I would never be involved in them.